The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 169.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Paul Pates, author of Disruption by Design, How to Create Products that Disrupt and Then Dominate Markets. Welcome, Paul, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Well, thanks, Wade. Thanks for having me.
Before we take a deep dive into your book, Disruption by Design, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us just a little bit about you personally.
Sure. I have been in the technology business, I guess, over 30 years now. And the first 2/3 of that, I worked for a number of different startups and companies that some of whom were disruptors, some not, but mostly in the technology business. And I went out on my own after that and started a marketing services company, and then joined a friend who was building a company providing services in disruptive innovation. And this is in the early 2000s. We did that for a couple of years, and then he went back. He was a research director in a stock brokerage, and it was actually the guy who made the initial positive buy call on Research in Motion for the BlackBerry, and that was how he made his reputation. Obviously, that went on to make a lot of money and do fairly well for a number of years. But he went back into the brokerage business and actually identifies disruptive innovators for that company now to invest in. And I went out on my own after that and started Innovative Disruption, which is a company that I run today, providing services to disruptors and companies facing disruption.
Excellent. So first off, thank you for sharing that. And now let's jump right into your book, Disruption by Design, How to Create Products that Disrupt and Dominate Markets, which actually was made available not too long ago at December 2014. And Paul, we're going to move quickly, but we're going to cover the top questions that our listeners would love to get answered before they jump in and purchase and read the book. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing Disruption by Design?
Well, that's a good question. I'm sure as you're familiar, there's a ton that's being written about disruptive innovation these days, and it seems to be the hottest topic in the media. And there are a number of books that have already been written, but what I'll say is that most of what you see in the media is incorrect. They don't truly understand what disruption is, but the idea of disruption is inspiring to innovators, and they really attach to the idea. They have a rebellious spirit, and want to take on the gorillas of their industry and take them down. So the idea of disruption is very appealing to innovators. But if you read the original books by Clayton Christensen, where he outlined the theory, what you see is that he describes the patterns by which we recognize disruption and how it happens in the market. But there's never anywhere where he identifies why it happens and what causes it. And without that information, without understanding why it happens, you can't predict when it's likely or highly probable, nor can you plan strategies and business models to do it on purpose. And that's been my business. And frankly, the majority of startups simply aren't in a position to afford my services. But the most value, I think, from disruption theory is in applying it to build a startup, to be disruptive and create new markets. And so, that was why I did it. I think anybody can afford the $30 that the book costs, and it provides a how-to guide that goes through everything from why disruption happens to how to do it to how to stay on top after you've succeeded.
So what makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
Well, I guess I kind of touched on that in the answer to the first question, but what I discuss, which is absolutely unique, is the causal factors of disruption, including the four, what I describe as the four necessary and sufficient conditions for it to occur. I outline a methodology for predicting when disruption is likely, and I provide a how-to guide that walks you through building a product and a marketing strategy and a business model that will enable your company to be disruptive. It's also the only sort of all-in-one book that summarizes everything from the theory to prediction to the practical how-to information, and then gives you tips on how to stay on top after you've succeeded.
So how did you design the book, or how would you suggest the reader engage with it? As far as, did you design it so that they could jump in and jump out based on information that they needed at that moment, or did you really design it to be read from front to back?
I think you can read it either way. It's certainly been written in such a way that there's a flow from one section to the next. I'll say the way I designed it structurally is the first section is primarily about summarizing the theory and how to predict disruption. The second section is primarily the the nuts and bolts of creating the product and marketing strategy and business model. And the third section is what to do after you put the strategy in place and you've started to succeed at disruption. So certainly the first section on the theory, if you've already read Clay's books, you probably don't need that, but it was intended to be a quick review and everything you need to know about the theory so that it's self-contained. So if you're already familiar with it, you could skip that section. In terms of the product and marketing strategy, that you could easily jump in at any chapter in that section and focus on positioning or segmentation or how to design the jobs for your product, how to identify opportunities for disruption, and of course you could also read the ending. I actually, as a reader, I prefer to start at the end of the book and then go back to the beginning. So you can read it any way you like, really.
So now that we know a little bit of the background, the purpose behind the book, and we've started to dive into it a little bit, but maybe we can dive in a little bit deeper. So will you take the next 5 minutes and really let the future reader know what they can expect to get out of your book?
Sure. Well, what I hope entrepreneurs and innovators get out of it is a solid understanding of the process, what causes disruption, and therefore how to do it on purpose. And so that's why I start with a really quick review of the theory. I don't go into a lot of detail about in Clay's books, he goes all the theory that you need, deep diving and examples and whatnot. And I just sort of skim across the top and summarize it so that you have it as a reference point for the rest of the book. And then walk through the prediction methodology, which helps to set up the how-to. So I reviewed job to be done theory and how you identify jobs for products. And that starts off the second section. And then I run through all the key marketing strategy points of segmentation, positioning, pricing strategy, and so on. And then wrap it up with sort of some practical tips, tactical things you can do once you've put your strategy in place, and then things to watch out for to stay disruptive and stay on top of the market after you've succeeded.
So, Paul, this next question I'm asking you really, really break it down and put it into a nutshell. And that's, if the reader can only take away one concept, principle, or action item out of your entire book, everything that you've discussed with us so far, what would you want that to be?
Well, the key idea is that you can design a company and a product to be disruptive. And if you understand what the causal factors are, if you follow these steps and design your business model correctly, anybody can build a disruptive innovation from the ground up.
So do you have a favorite quote? I know we were talking beforehand, but did you think of one? Do you have a favorite quote from your book? And if you do, will you take a sec to explain what it means to you?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that. And I don't really think of my book in terms of quotes, but maybe one thing that stands out for me has to do with one of the core things about disruptive innovation is the notion of the job to be done, and there has to be an addressable market scarcity that you uniquely satisfy with the job. And the most important thing to remember when defining a job is that a lot of people think job to be done just equates to needs, but the way I position that is that the job is what you're for, not what you do. And so I guess that's probably the most important thing that I would salt away in the back of your brain when you're thinking about your product and how it satisfies a market requirement, is that the product is what you're for, not what you do.
Excellent. So, Paul, it wouldn't be a book-centric podcast if we didn't ask you for a recommendation. So if there's only one book you could recommend to our listeners, based on the way that's impacted your life, created a lifestyle or a paradigm shift, what book would you suggest?
Yeah, that's almost impossible for me to give you a fair answer to, because I have hundreds of books in my bookshelf that I've read. I guess for what I do and for what this book is about, the most important book to me has probably been The Innovator's Solution, which is by Clayton Christensen. It was the second book in the series that really outlined the theory. I mean, that book was very important to me in looking back on my time as a technology, as a product manager and as a marketing executive, looking back at the companies that I'd worked with and understanding why they had either failed to disrupt or had really taken the market by storm. And once I started to decode that, that was how I got into this business, and it's what I've done for a living for the last 10 years. So I guess you could say that book has been really important to my life, and I certainly, even though I cover some of the same ground, it was important to me in getting me into this business and to developing the ideas that I introduce in my book about how to disrupt on purpose.
Excellent. So, Paul, one, I want to thank you for coming on, but also before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to get more information on you, but also get more information on your book, Disruption by Design?
Well, the book is available at, I think, pretty much any site that sells books. You'll find it on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble. Set up an account at Goodreads, so you can come to Goodreads and talk to me there. And you can also look me up on my website, which is www.innovativedisruption.com. That's my company. So you can look up my what I do there and find out more about me and my blog. You can also follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I've set up a special group on LinkedIn for people to come and seek advice, to share insights as peers from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, and basically about how to disrupt on purpose. So it's that group on LinkedIn is designed to be complementary to my book, and the address to that is actually published in the book. So you can join that, and you can either sit in the background and just watch other people discussing some of the concepts in the book, and my participation, or you can ask your own questions, or just learn from people that are doing.
Excellent. So, Paul, we'll put those resources that you just mentioned in the show notes on the elpodcast.com, so people can go back and actually reference those. And again, thank you for coming on today and sharing your book with us. Well, thank you again for having me. I'm really excited by the reception it's gotten so far, and hoping it really helps entrepreneurs do better. Thanks again for listening in today. If you'd like more information on Paul or his book, Disruption by Design, visit the elpodcast.com. And if you'd also like to win or have the opportunity to win this book, go to the elpodcast.com and become a VIP.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.